Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to a Monday live stream. So, kind of a mixed day for markets thus far today. At the open, we've got U.S. stocks sort of, again, a mixed bag. You got the NASDAQ in the green, S&P slightly in the green, Dow in the red, Russell 2000 in the red. But if you take a look over here at the commodities tab on Yahoo Finance, you can see that here is where the action is really at. Gold up over 1% today. The futures contract that is most traded, the December contract, right now over $2,500. WTI crude up almost 3%. Silver up 1.42%. Commodities are getting a safe haven bid here, and the driver is geopolitical tension. So let's go to the chart here of gold, and you'll see that we had this breakout here back in March above this $2,100 level, kicked off a big rally. Now, it's been consolidating in this sort of sideways churn for the past several months, but today, futures contract is broken above this top trend line here, right now at 2503. Now, this is a critical level for gold because if it really successfully breaks above this top trend line, this could kick off the next phase of this bull run, another run like this, taking us up to, I don't know how high, $2,600, $2,700, $2,800, maybe $3,000 gold, depending on how this situation that we're observing geopolitically breaks. And, to break this down for you, I know a lot of people are going to say, 2503, that's not the spot price of gold right now. That's true. It is not. Right now, the August contract for gold is trading at 24.46, but got to understand why we use the December contract right now is because look at the volume. For August, 451 contracts at the COMEX being traded. For the December contract, which right now is at a little over 2,500, the volume is 124,855. So that's the real liquid contract. That's what people are trading when it comes to gold. So that's why that's the price that we look at on this chart. Now, silver, it's a similar story. I showed this chart in yesterday's or Saturday's live stream where, it's kind of a bullish setup for silver. It's bouncing off a key resistance level. The gold to silver ratio down here just touched a key resistance level and is falling. That is indicative of the beginning of a bull run in the metals. And today, silver is up. It was up over $28 a few minutes ago. Now it's back down to $27.96. But it looks like silver did bottom around that $26 resistance level. And now it too is set up for the next run higher. Silver miners today, the SILJ junior miners, putting on pretty decent gains, 2.83%. Churning, it's volatile certainly, but this seems to be a confirmation that the metals are in for a breakout. And we need to talk about the news, why gold and silver and oil are all breaking out today, why they're all so significantly in the green. We'll get to that in a moment, but listen, this is regarding geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Now, hopefully, cooler heads prevail there, but it's not looking good based on the most recent reports. And if a broad regional war breaks out, then safe haven assets like gold and silver are going to explode, especially physical gold and silver. Right now, today's video sponsor, they still have very low premiums. I think that could change in a very quick way if a regional war in the Middle East or elsewhere breaks out. There's other hotspots at the moment as well. We're going to talk about that. But they've got a sale on Buffalo rounds and Buffalo gold coins from the U.S. Mint. As I said, premiums are very low right now. Even if you just pick up one of these, it's $69.99 over spot right now. That's less than a 3% markup over the spot price of gold. It's a very low premium for a U.S. Mint gold coin. So, look, I'm not saying you need to go out and, FOMO into these things. What I am saying is that the time of low premiums may be coming to an end in short order. So, it's not financial advice. Just, act accordingly. Keep that in mind. So here's the most recent reports from Axios. Now, the thing that has changed here is for a while there, it seemed like there were a lot of reports that, the Middle East was perhaps backing away from conflict. Maybe Iran was giving in to diplomatic pressure from the U.S., from other regional allies of the U.S. to postpone or cancel its retaliation on Israel following the assassination of Hamas leader Haniyeh in Tehran. But now, according to Axios, this is from late yesterday, Israeli intelligence has now updated its assessment that Iran is poised to attack directly in retaliation for the assassination of Hamas political leader in Tehran, and is likely to do it within days. Now, there had been reports earlier that August 12th could be the day. That's today, because it is a holiday in the Jewish religion, and that might be, some kind of a catalyst for attack. Now, Israeli intelligence has changed. Now, listen, it's possible, I guess, looking at this objectively, maybe the Israelis are looking for a conflict with Iran, right? So they create this intelligence. Maybe it's genuine intelligence. Who knows? I don't purport to, know the truth of what's going on the ground there. And certainly just looking at open source intelligence, we're not likely to get, intimate knowledge of the actual inner workings. But the point is that the odds of a regional conflict are now higher. And I think that is obvious from what we're hearing here. Now, the Israeli intelligence community, they think Hezbollah, the Shiite Iran-backed militia based out of Lebanon, is likely to attack first. And there actually, overnight, were some signs that may be beginning. We'll talk about that in a moment. The sources here said that the attacks by Hezbollah in Iran are likely to be bigger than the one that was conducted last April, on April 13th. You remember what happened to the price of Pax Gold, the gold cryptocurrency, on April 13th, a Saturday when gold markets were closed. It spiked up to over $3,000. So, it might be a preview of what we can see should a really significant attack be launched here. And again, we'll all be better off if none of this plays out, because it's going to be very disruptive to the global economy, not to mention the human toll. But that being said, you can wish in one hand and, it's not likely to be dissuaded by, our well wishes that this conflict, not play out. So the best thing we can do is just get prepared. Israeli Defense Minister Gallant hinted at a visit to the IDF forces on Sunday, said that Iran and Hezbollah are threatening to harm us in a way they haven't done in the past. So also, perhaps their intelligence indicates that something beyond the missile and drone strikes that we witnessed back in April are on the way. Either way, the U.S. is moving significant resources into the region. They have moved a guided missile submarine, the USS Georgia, which has more than 150 cruise missiles, surface-to-surface cruise missiles, precision-guided weapons. So potentially the U.S. is thinking of launching airstrikes on Iran. And also the USS Abraham Lincoln, that's a carrier strike group, they have hastened its transit to the area. So they were already headed there, but now they are, going to get there faster. Now, someone in the chat here put something interesting. He says, I want to use my credit card. I'm assuming you mean to buy gold or silver. Now, again, I caution you against FOMO there. I can't give you financial advice. I mean, maybe for some people, buying gold and silver on a credit card is the right move. I never do that. I certainly wouldn't go all in on gold and silver just because this is playing out. I wouldn't use debt to buy gold and silver ever, or leverage myself. I think that you're setting yourself up to be a weak hand if that's the case, because it looks to me like gold and silver are going to be going higher, but you never know what you don't know. So it's better to play it safe. But if you don't have a position in the physical metals, you got a bunch of fiat currency, you got a bunch of cash right now. If I was in that scenario, I would be thinking of converting some of that into some physical hard assets, because you can bet if this conflict does escalate in a big way, then there's a real possibility of a rush into physical safe haven assets. Right now we're talking about the spot price. When we look at the chart of gold breaking out now over $2,500, but the price of physical gold could far exceed the spot price in the event of an escalation. So that's something to consider. Also, another thing that we need to look at here is there's a possibility of a preemptive strike by Israel against Iranian threats. This is from the Jerusalem Post from 5 days ago about a preemptive strike. They say, as tensions rise, some in Israel have called for a preemptive strike on Iran and its proxies, According to Israeli media reports, the country's leadership would consider such a strike if it had solid evidence that Iran was planning a significant attack. And of course, as this article from Axios points out, Israeli intelligence now believes that there is a significant attack brewing. So maybe Iran doesn't want any part of this. I mean, again, I really have no idea. Maybe the Israelis are just itching for a conflict. They want to do it before Iran gets nuclear weapons. That's a possibility. And so maybe they'll just launch a preemptive strike whether or not Iran is preparing to attack. There's a lot of things at war here, but I think that, if one side, it doesn't matter what Iran or Israel necessarily want, if one side wants a conflict, then we're going to get one. And I think it would be wise to be prepared. Also, something to keep in mind here, I think this is a critical point as we watch this play out in the Middle East, both in Israel, also in the Red Sea, as the U.S. continues to launch or continues with Operation Prosperity Guardian, defending against Houthi attacks on ship, as the cost of defending against these attacks. This is an article from Reuters back in April, following the attack of April 13th, says Israel's defense would trump Iran's in any air war, but at a high cost. And skip most of this article and just go down here to point this out, that the attack on April 13th, according to calculations by analysts, the price of Iran's attack on that day probably amounted to $80 million to $100 million with missiles and drones, which Iran actually has a pretty sophisticated industry producing drones and missiles and rockets and things like that. And it cost Israel and its allies about $1 billion to repel. So in a war of attrition, Israel is really at a disadvantage here, and Western forces, because the cost of intercepting these strikes is prohibitively expensive, and the ratio really favors the attacker in this case. Yes, they have a very capable air defense system in Israel, but it's not cheap to run. So, if Iran really wants to put a hurting financially on Israel and its Western allies, such as the United States, who ultimately will probably be footing a lot of this bill, then any attacks that they launch are at the very least very costly. And it's the same story in the Red Sea with the Houthis. The U.S., we launch a $1 million, $2 million interceptor missile to take down a $50,000 drone. In that case, yeah, you defend yourself, but again, at what cost? And this is from Zero Hedge earlier today. So overnight, actually some indications that Israel's Iron Dome interceptor system may be showing some weaknesses here. And certainly, I would expect there to be problems in the event that, a significant airstrike is launched. I mean, you can only defend against so much stuff. Eventually, you run out of interceptor munitions, etc. And last night, or early morning hours, I guess, depending, where you're located, Hezbollah launched 30 rockets, at least 30, at northern Israel. And there are videos going around on X. Now, this is unsubstantiated, but that some of these may have been landing, actually striking targets. I think a lot of them went off in open field. Some of them started fires. But they're saying that there could be a failure of the Iron Dome system. Now, again, this is unverified, not guaranteed. There's also videos being posted from last night of Iron Dome shooting down Hezbollah rockets, looks like rather effectively. So, this is just something, it shows you kind of one fog of war. We don't really, someone says Iron Dome isn't working, maybe it is. But we'll see. I mean, hopefully, if Iran does launch an attack, Iron Dome will work, because if, an attack is successful and it's more than just a show of force, if civilians are targeted, if there are a significant number of casualties, that is going to increase the likelihood of a major escalation in a big way. Now, we can take a look here at Flight Radar 24. Now, it doesn't look like an attack is imminent, because you've still got a bunch of commercial air traffic flying over Iran, some flying over Iraq, plenty over Israel right now, and I expect should the missiles start flying, this is going to clear up pretty fast. You're going to see commercial air traffic through the region diminish. So at least, in the immediate future, like the coming hours, doesn't look to me like there's a huge risk of a major escalation, but you never know. I mean, if it's unannounced, it might take a little while to clear the skies, although many airlines right now have canceled flights to the region. Lufthansa, as well as a number of European airlines, have canceled flights to Israel, to Iraq, to Iran. And that is an indication, I think, that they're taking this threat seriously. This is an article from Bloomberg, which again highlights, one of the biggest risks to the global economy from this escalation. It says why the Strait of Hormuz is a focus of worry once again. It's a major shipping route adjacent to Iran, handles almost 30% of the world's oil trade. It's closely watched for signs of disruption and threats from Iran to punish Israel for the killing pursuit of its aims. And sorry if we're getting a little disruption on the traffic from the live stream. Do me a favor, put a 1 if I'm still connected. I got an error message here a moment ago. Looks like I'm still seeing the chat though. And then it says, why is it essential? It's essential to the global oil trade because tankers haul almost 15.5 million barrels per day of crude and condensate. Thank you. I see that I'm still talking to all of you, so that's good. From Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and United Arab Emirates and Iran through the Strait in the first quarter of 2024. So a huge portion of global oil transiting the Strait. Also, about 1/5 of the world's supply of liquid natural gas, mostly from Qatar, passing through during the same period. So clearly this is, a very critical waterway. You can see on the map here how close it is to Iran. And this is from the Strauss Center for International Security at Law at the University of Texas at Austin. They talk about the Strait of Hormuz, what kind of threats there are through the Strait. And they say that Iran's conventional forces are likely to be overmatched by American and coalition forces in any conflict over the Strait. But to create a sustained disruption to oil flows, we assume that Iran would use weapons of asymmetric warfare, such as mines, land-based anti-ship cruise missiles, and small boat suicide attacks. Also, I believe that they have naval artillery, so, the same kind of thing that you would see on a ship, embedded all along the coast there. I mean, they've had years and years to dig in and prepare for just such an eventuality. So I'm sure that the Iranians have some tricks up their sleeve. And while, their military likely won't stand up in a head-to-head confrontation with the West, one, it's going to be very, very expensive for the U.S. I mean, you look at what's going on, again, with the Houthis and Operation Prosperity Guardian there in the Red Sea. Despite the fact that the U.S. has a lot of military assets there, we haven't really been able to completely deter the Houthis from launching their attacks. So I see no reason to believe that we would be capable of taking on a full-fledged nation state in terms of interrupting their attacks on the Strait of Hormuz. So very likely, if Iran really wants to put a hurting on the West, they know where to do it. Inflation is a huge problem in a lot of economies at the moment, really around the world, especially in the West. We've got an election coming up. So, if they want to really put a hurting on the global economy, shutting down 1/5 of liquid natural gas supplies and about 30% of oil probably would do the trick. And so, that's something that, if this kicks off, could be a real risk. And it's why there's a possibility that you could see the price of oil spike. You could see the price of all commodities spike. And you could also see a rotation, I think, out of riskier assets in the form of, paper asset crash. In that scenario, though, I do think physical assets like bullion would tend to trade at a high premium. Of course, it's only one scenario, only one way it could play out. Feel free to put your forecast in the chat down below or in the comments if you're watching this later. Also, it's not just the Middle East where we're seeing a lot of geopolitical tensions. Currently, Ukraine has sort of played the Uno reverse card on Russia. They've actually invaded this Kursk area of Russia. Kiev now says that it controls some 1,000 square kilometers inside Russia. This may be a bit of a distraction from the actual Donbass front lines where Ukraine is suffering, significant losses against the Russians, but they have used crack troops and, arms provided by the West to make this incursion into the Kursk region, which, if you remember your history, this is actually where the Germans in World War II kind of had a crushing defeat following their defeat at Stalingrad, and this was where the turning point of that war sort of occurred, where it was just, backpedaling from that point for the Wehrmacht. But maybe there will be some historical analog there, or maybe Zelensky will flip the script. I don't really know, but the point is that geopolitical tensions are heating up elsewhere as well, and it raises the possibility of other entities becoming embroiled in this Middle East war. Yeah, that's true. Jay says in the chat that history shows Russian invasions don't end well. Yes, it didn't work out well for Napoleon or for that guy with the mustache. I can't say his name because the video will get censored. But yeah, Russian invasion didn't work too well for them. Who knows what's going on in Ukraine? It might be a sign of desperation, in fact, but we'll have to see. But certainly instability is the name of the game at this point. And, the only thing that we can really guarantee is going to continue is the debts and deficits here domestically. If war breaks out, we're already broke. We're already $35.15 trillion in debt, but you can expect this number to rise drastically if April 13th cost $1 billion in defensive interceptors. Imagine what a full-blown war is going to look like. And I think that's why not only is the safe haven element of gold and silver in play here, but also simply the fact that they're assets that can't be printed. You got to actually dig them up out of the ground, I think is really in their favor at the moment, considering how many of these fiat dollars are likely to be created in the event of a broad regional conflict. So keep an eye on the price of gold, keep an eye on the price of silver today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe and happy stacking. Do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so, and leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think about all the topics we covered today. Stay safe and happy stacking, everybody. I'll catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.